I'm a god.
Well, what if there is no tomorrow?
I'm a god.
There wasn't one today.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of It's Time to Rewind, a podcast stuck in its own time loop right along with the movies we discuss. In this episode, we're taking a look at Groundhog Day, after day, after day, after day, after day. I'm your host, Bubba Wheat from Flights, Tights, and Movie Nights, and in this episode, we're discussing Phil's 27th Groundhog Day that starts at 65 minutes and 22 seconds with a slow pan to the top of the Pennsylvania Hotel, and ends at 66 minutes and 8 seconds with a sheet being placed over Phil's face. This episode contains discussions about depression and suicide. We try to keep things light here, and if you've listened to the previous 3 episodes, we're going to get just a little bit more serious this time. So if that's a sensitive subject for you to listen to, you might want to skip ahead to the next episode. And once again, I'm joined by the Vern from Cinema Recall. How are you doing today?
Mwah, splat, wah, 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 wah. I don't know, I'm trying to do weird, funny, bad sound effects, trying to keep things light. Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. It's I, the Vern. Thank you very much, for Mr. Bubbleweed, for bringing me back on to another episode of Time Loops. Thank you very much.
No problem. It's good to have you back. And it is weird that all the previous, like you mentioned, all the previous suicides so far have been very light and comedic, and like the music that goes with it has been very light. And then it's like switches gears for this one, and then we get a very dramatic musical score for Phil's fall off of the Pennsylvania Hotel, which in actuality, the building is the Woodstock Opera House in Woodstock, Illinois.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I do agree with you, too, but how the tone changes in the scene. Because, like you mentioned before, in the other ones, it's very late comedic. The first time he does it with the Groundhog. It's called Groundhog's Day, not Gopher Day. I think Gopher Day is another movie. I'm pretty sure there's a Gopher Day. I'm not quite sure. But when he's in the car with the Groundhog, he's still kind of cracking jokes. And when we see the truck go off the cliff, we don't actually see him in the car. We don't see Phil in the car with the Groundhog. We just see the truck, and the truck lands. And I think that having a character like Larry kind of telling Joe, like, oh, he might be okay, and then it explodes. Oh, probably not. Having a character like Larry, especially played by Chris Elliott, and I'm sure you talked about Chris Elliott's career in other episodes. I think Life Goes On? What's the name of that show? Yeah.
No, it's not Life Goes On. It's Get a Life.
Get a Life. Thank you. I think
Yes.
Get a Life was still pretty strong in 93.
Yes, that was a show that I actually watched myself, and we actually haven't talked much about Chris Elliott's career. I don't think at all in this show, but I do remember Get a Life. I remember watching that whenever it came out. But the only thing that I remember is they had an episode with like a weird little alien, and that had, I think it had Brian Doyle Murray in that show as well. And like they befriend this alien, and then at some point the alien dies, like gets burned, and then they start eating the alien, and it's like absolutely delicious, and they can't stop eating it. That's the type of bizarreness that you get from Get a Life. And either that, or you're getting this fever dream of a memory that didn't actually happen, and I'm just making this up and not actually remembering the show correctly.
The only thing I remember about the show Get a Life, there is a band called the Handsome Boy Modeling School, and they're comprised of different DJs. And there's one song called, I think it's actually called the Handsome Boy Modeling School, that just uses clips of this show with some sort of like classical music and then a hip hop beat. And it's a montage of different quotes from Get a Life done to this hip hop beat with this classical violin music. And that's like probably my first introduction to Get a Life. So, anyways, Chris Elliott's there to break the tension of Phil's first suicide.
Yeah, and in this one we do get a little bit of Chris Elliott breaking the tension once again with him,
True.
talking about, he was a really, really good guy. I really liked him.
Very, very deadpan. He definitely has a very good deadpan delivery. And I do know, like, in other shows, Chris Elliott's more the wild card, the wacky one. Um, I can almost imagine Chris's. I almost want to see Chris Elliott's reaction after Phil got hit by the truck. I don't know what kind of deadpan reaction he would have made to that, but he would have made something good, I'm sure.
I could almost see like Chris Elliott's character from Scary Movie 2 in this movie trying to hold the camera with his little hand.
Oh, the hands! Oh, I totally forgot that he was in that. Oh, damn, that's funny. That's funny. Um, so yeah, but when we get to the camera panning up to what building did you say that was?
It's the Woodstock Opera House, and it actually is, reportedly haunted by ghosts, including a woman who they've nicknamed Elvira, and she was reportedly a ballet dancer from the early 1900s, and she was trying to get the lead in a ballet production, and it was given to another woman, and so she went up to the top of the tower and jumped off, and now she supposedly haunts the opera house.
Oh, well, shoot. Okay. Oh, I wonder if did this happen before the late night host, the very bustaful, beautiful Elvira? This happened before that?
I
Before
mean,
that
the event
character?
definitely happened before that, but I'm not sure if it's possible that the nickname came after, the famous Elvira.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I should mention too that in this moment, you mentioned too how the music does change. And this time we actually do see Phil's face, his close up of his face.
Mhm.
Um, and that's where the tone really changes because most of the time, I mean, we do kind of see Phil's face when the truck hits him, but it's really super fast, and you don't have a chance to really hold on there. And in this moment, the camera just pans all the way up. You can see it's a high, totally high where he's at right now, and it pushes us on his face, and then he just has. I don't, does he say something before he jumps? I thought he did, but I wasn't quite sure.
No, this one also, he doesn't have any lines here. The only people that get lines in this day is really Larry, because even the doctor doesn't have any lines. Oh wait, and then Rita says, "Yeah, that's him," and that's her
Yeah,
only line.
there's only a line right there because after he jumps, um, then we do see the doctor taking the sheet off, and I thought that just Rita just like puts her face into Larry and just starts sobbing, and that's where Larry goes, ah, yeah, he was a nice guy.
A really,
We're
really
gonna
nice
miss him.
guy.
He really was a nice guy. Uh, now I found that to be kind of weird that we have a scene that takes place without really our main character. I mean,
Yes, I think that's very interesting too, and also especially in the context of time loop stories in general, because they usually are centered on the main character, which would be Phil, and whether or not he would die or that something would happen to him, that's usually what causes the day to reset. But in this one, his death doesn't actually cause the day to reset. The day goes on with the rest of Punxsutawney around him, and they still live the entire rest of the day completely unknowing that they're stuck in a time loop along with him.
yeah, in a weird way too. Like this would be kind of one way to change the dynamic of the movie is to have one character go through a time loop, and then somehow another character gets stuck in a time loop.
It's funny that you mentioned that because one of the original endings in the script has after Phil wakes up and with Rita next to him, so you know that it's actually February 3rd, then they go through that day, and then the very ending has Rita waking up again, and it's February 3rd again, and then it's Rita stuck in a time loop afterwards for a potential
Oh,
sequel.
okay. But you see, if they were gonna do but then Bill Murray's kind of part of that sequel, and I don't know if that works so well. Because the idea about Groundhog Day is that you have one character trying to solve the problem by himself. If you actually have Rita now have a time loop, Phil's there. He's done it before. He can help guide her, and she should really learn to guide herself. That's what makes Groundhog Day so good. Is they have this character Phil, who is very egocentrical, very selfish, and then he learns through repetition how not to be that way. He learns to do things by himself. If you actually have him there with Rita, he's going to tell her, well, there's something you have to change. And the movie's basically kind of over with already. I would have done the time loop with the Larry character.
Yeah, and even if Phil Connors, even if he gets reset every day, then he would still be like the I can't remember her name, but in Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, another good
Uh,
time loop movie. I totally forgot about that. Yes.
yeah, the um, the woman character in there that had experienced her own time loop and then gotten out of it, even though she resets every day because she had experienced that in the past, then that's a character that Tom Cruise can go to and explain it to her, and then she immediately believes him, and so now she's his ally. And then Bill Murray would be that similar type of character if this were to get a sequel, even if he wasn't retaining his own consciousness there with this along with Rita.
Okay. I I can agree with that. That that would make sense too. Can I just say something about Emily Blunt?
Yeah, that's her name. That's sure.
I love that name. That is just a very, very beautiful name. Just saying it just makes everything just sound okay. All
And
right.
her
I
evil
mean,
twin, Emily Sharp.
but I mean, John. She's married to John Krasinski. Don't have her name be Emily Krasinski. Krasinski is it? I know John Krasinski is her husband, right?
Krasinski.
Krasinski. Yeah. Please don't take this name if you get married. John, you're now John Blunt. I'm sorry. That's it. You have to take her name now.
Definitely also don't do what's her name? Alexa Vega
Was
from
she?
the Spy Kids movies, and then
Oh
whenever
yeah.
she got married, they combined their last names. It was like uh, Penavega.
Wow. All right. I thought that she would marry a Bond and become Vagabond. Although that'd be kind of a badass name too, Vagabond. Name the kid that. Oh yeah, I remember Alexa Vega. She
Yeah,
was
Alexis
also
Penavega.
Alexis Penavit. Oh gosh. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I remember you in Spy Kids and Repo the Generic Opera and Machete Kills. So yeah, okay, fair enough there. All right. Um, but yeah, I just almost imagine Larry having his own time loop and just
Yeah, because Larry is someone who also could use a bit of work. Like he's
yes.
not quite at Phil level, but especially the way that Rita is presented as a character is like Phil starts out being bad Phil, and then he becomes better because because he's trying to make himself better, at least
Mhm.
partly because he sees Rita
Yeah.
as being better than him. And so it would be a weird thing to have Rita stuck in a time loop because she's already a good person. She
Yeah.
doesn't need to become a better person, at least not from what we can tell in this movie.
So are you saying that for Rita, Rita has to like learn to be somewhat of a rebel or be bad at
Yeah,
sometimes or
to loosen up, let her hair down, go through like the '90s makeover where
oh
she
I can.
has to take off her glasses and let her hair down.
Well, she already looks good looking already, so because I know that Rita does everything right, and she's very righteous and does everything by the books and is very honorable. And maybe her time loop situation would be like, well, sometimes in order to get things done, you have to break some rules here. You can still have morals. We're not saying, kill someone, but you may have to stand up to someone in order to get things done. You may have to stand up to the bad guy or the bully or something along that line. Like maybe she has to, you know, she has to get this time loop solved because there's another big promotion and there's like this dickhead boss that's always harassing her, but she doesn't know how to stand up for herself. And maybe through the course of actions, she can learn to stand up for herself. And it'll start off with something small, like maybe one of the locals makes fun of her, but she doesn't want to like say anything because she doesn't want to seen as being mean, and then learns to change things around that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. Now where this movie is about Phil becoming a better person, but then the sequel with Rita would introduce some personality flaw where it's not necessarily that she needs to become a better person, but she has to overcome this one personality flaw.
She has to develop more self confidence.
Yeah, and then I did also want to mention coming back to today's loop with the fall. We get to see it's like a very graceful fall from this 5-story tower, and the stuntman that actually does that, his name is Rick Lefevre,
Okay.
and he's a Chicago-based stuntman, and he actually has a pretty long career. He's been involved in 268 different projects, according to IMDb,
Oh.
as well as a bunch of big ones. Like he was one of the stunt drivers in The Dark Knight, where he flips a car in Lower Wacker Drive. He was in Ben Affleck's The Town. He was Tom Cruise's double in Risky Business, whenever he clung to the hood of the Porsche that plunged into the harbor.
Oh, see, I thought he was Tom Cruise, risky business during all the set scenes with Rebecca De Mornay, which would have been, a really great job right there too. And I'm sure Tom Cruise like, no man, I can do the scene. Nope, you need a stunt guy here. We don't want to hurt yourself, Tom. No, really, I can do the scene. Nope, Tom, you're too valuable. We don't want to damage you right now, so we're gonna bring a stunt double in here for all your set scenes with Miss Rebecca De Mornay. It'll be fine, Tom. Don't worry about it.
That's like what they did in Orgasmo, right?
Yes, I guess. Oh yeah.
That's a movie reference that me and you get, and not a single other person listening is going to have any idea what we're talking about.
Orgasmo was directed by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. It was made after the first feature, Cannibal the Musical. It was, and yeah, you can find it. I bought the DVD on eBay not too long ago. Yes.
But I did want to take a little bit of time here in this last one because this is a more serious time loop. I know you mentioned before we started recording that you don't really have much personal experience with anybody with depression and suicide, but
I have people that like there are friends of mine that do reach out if they're feeling low and down, and where I'm there for them. And if I dealt with like one of my roommates has like anxiety issues, and I've got friends of mine that have anxiety issues and feelings of low worth, but I'd never gotten to the point where someone says, I can't do this anymore. People have been depressed and I'm there for them if they ever want to reach out, but I just never had anyone actually, seek out that they're feeling depressed. And if anyone does feel depressed, I'm hoping that they can reach out to me.
yeah, and depression is a very difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah.
I've dealt with, minor depression myself, basically, kind of like what you mentioned, just longer periods of feeling just feeling down and kind of hopeless. But I have also had, luckily never anything like super direct, but I have kind of like just one step removed have have been have known people who have committed suicide. I kind of like to think of it myself rather than committing suicide as I like to think of it as succumbing to depression because I feel like committing suicide is like that phrase. It's like an active action, something that they are doing to themselves. But I think it's typically more they're succumbing to depression, where depression is this mental disease that still has a lot of stigma surrounding it.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, I have actually taken a knife to my arm before. I think, and I don't exactly why it happened. It had to deal with me doing something stupid at my job and almost getting fired for it. And I thought I was gonna lose my job and not have any money. And I got real upset and I took a knife. There's actually scars on my arm from that. So that was one thing of depression, but that happened like so many years ago now. It's just, and the weird thing too is afterwards you get put on Zoloft. I was put on Zoloft, and I couldn't deal with Zoloft. Zoloft just made me just feel very numb. Like I couldn't feel anything at all, and I'd much rather feel upset and sad than the numbness.
Yeah, and I can understand that because I have also and I'm not going to get into specific details on in this part, but I have had a couple people close to me that have suffered from depression to where it has been somewhat severe, but they also refuse to take medication, and I think a lot of that was at least partly because of the stigma surrounding depression and just that they didn't want to admit that they had this weakness or that they had this thing that they thought that they might have to live with for the rest of their lives. But luckily, they through therapy and other things, they're doing better now. But I have in the past, I found out several years ago that there was a high school friend of mine, and I found out that she had committed suicide. I'd
Oh,
say this was
jeez.
probably like 10 years ago now, and that was a big shock. And hearing secondhand from people that knew her, nobody knew that this was going on underneath the surface with her to where she actually got to that point because like everybody that knew her said that she was
Oh.
an outwardly very happy person.
Is that
And
how she was when you talked to her? I mean, were you like close
yeah,
with her?
no, I like I said, it's kind of like I was like one step removed. I knew
Sure.
her relatively well in high school, but
Okay.
then whenever we graduated I didn't hear from her until I heard about her passing.
I was kind of curious if you had like a class with her, or you did any projects with her while you were in school, or just
Yeah.
in
In
past.
in high school, we were like not super close, but we were relatively good acquaintances,
Okay.
and it was, it was a surprise to hear that, even though I hadn't been in contact with her for many years at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. I since I move around a lot, I never got any sort of flyers for a high school reunion or anything like that. So I have no idea if anyone in my class is still around or not, or hear about people change. But yeah, that's got to be very kind of like an odd, weird thing to hear about, especially for someone that you haven't known. Like a friend of mine recently passed away not too long ago, and it she died at a very young age, and it was due to a heart attack. And this woman who was like a very good acquaintance friend, like we weren't like super close, but I definitely saw her at parties and a few other friend shindigs, and we definitely did talk. And she was part of the roller derby team and very healthy, and succumbed to heart attack at a young age is very kind of a weird thing. And it's got to be kind of rough too to hear about someone that you've known and someone that who seems very happy and put together, and then have them just suddenly leave. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I would handle stuff like that, man.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a disease,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's a disease that can be caused by external forces like just relationships and things like that, and other times it is just a chemical imbalance in your head. But at the same time, it's it is something that if it affects you, it's not something that you can just snap out of. It is something that you need treatment for, whether or not it's medication or therapy or things like that. But it's not something that should be taken lightly by anyone. And I don't have it offhand, but if anybody listening to this does have those sort of feelings, it's important to reach out, look up a suicide hotline, or reach out to a friend or someone you might know, because there's a lot of help out there.
And to me, for me, like feeling depressed to the modes of like suicide, and this is just my feelings on it though, is if you don't have the will to even get up each day, like you don't have the will to, shower, get out of the house, just stay indoors all day, don't even like leave your room. That's like a big sign of depression. Am I wrong on that?
No, and I think that you know, jumping back to the movie a little bit,
Mhm.
that I believe that it's heavily implied that Phil has had those days in this movie. Like I think the Jeopardy day is one of those days where he probably just stayed in bed all day. He didn't get up. He didn't get out of bed until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, early evening, and just went downstairs, grabbed a bowl of popcorn and a bottle of Jim Beam, and
Mhm.
just started watching Jeopardy at 6:30, and that was his morning.
That is a good point. That he probably spent a lot of time drinking himself. I'm pretty sure he got drunk a lot of time. I'm pretty sure that Phil Connors tried to pull a Nicolas Cage and leave in Las Vegas and drink himself to death.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened too. Which that reminds me, and maybe this might bring us around on to hopefully end on a little bit of a lighter note. But we only see like 36 days in the movie that Phil goes through, but there's plenty of days that we actually don't see. Is there one of those days where you think must have happened or that you would just love to have seen that didn't make it to the film, like a deleted scene that you would love to see?
Like the deleted scene that did not make it into the movie. You know what? I almost wanted to see him try to rob a bank. I can almost
Like
like
not
him
just
try
the armored car, but actually go like full on bank robbery.
a bank robbery or a heist of some reason, like him trying to bank, or him trying to like rob people's houses, like, but definitely try to do. And I'm pretty sure he would convince those two drunks at the bar to join him for a heist, because I'm pretty sure uh, he would probably try it once after hours to break in to steal the money when no one's there. And I almost imagine him trying to do like a stick up at the bar at the bank, but not actually use any real guns. But yeah, I would like to see him try to do, because I have you seen the movie Quick Change?
I have not.
So Quick Change is about Bill Murray, Gina Davis, and Randy Quaid, and they are robbing a bank, and Jason Robards is a cop trying to chase after them, and it's good. It's a lot of fun, but it starts off the movie with Bill Murray as a clown robbing a bank, and the patrons in the customers in the bank are played by Gina Davis and Randy Quaid, and they're in on the robbery. Are in on the robbery, and just it's a lot of fun. I think it came around the same year as this movie too, 93. So yeah, quick change, very funny movie. And I just want to see Bill Murray just rob a bank because he's a funny robber. All right, even though he's got a gun and everything, it's Bill Murray. I mean, if Bill Murray came to my bank and robbed it, I would just be like, okay, I'm going to enjoy being a hostage because it's Bill Murray.
Yeah. All right. Well, we had a lot of ups and downs in these past few
clowns,
episodes.
dude. Clowns in a bank. All right, and Gene Davis looks very sexy, and Randy Quaid isn't the a-hole he became. He's actually pretty funny in this, and yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, we had some ups and downs here and these past few episodes, but I'd like to thank you so much for joining me. And then, for this is your last time here. Is there anything else that you want to say before you go?
So put your little hand in mine. We ain't got no mountain we can climb. Ba ba babe ba ba do ba ba do ba ba do. I got you, babe. Ba ba boop. Sing it with me. I got you, babe. Ba ba boop ba boop. I got you, babe. Yes. Oh.
Perfect. All right. So why don't you go ahead and remind everybody where they can find you online?
Yes, just search the interwebs for Cinema Recall, cinemarecall.net. We are coming back this August or so with new episodes, so find us on Stitcher, Spotify, Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeartRadio, all the places you can listen to podcasts. We're on Twitter at cinema_recall.
And as always, I am Bubba Wheat, and you can find me at flightstitesandmovienights.com. You can find me on Twitter at Bubba Wheat, and you can find this podcast, It's Time to Rewind, on Anchor.fm, as well as anywhere else where you listen to podcasts. And you can also join our Facebook group, It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group, where you can discuss episodes and any other time loop stories out there and memes, and I'd like to see more people join it. It's a lot of fun. And once again, I'd like to thank Vern. He's a really nice guy. I really like him.
Oh, I like you too, man. I do. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. Even though it's been kind of dour and dark the subject matter, we made it fun. We also made it very informative, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
I'm a god. Well, what if there is no tomorrow? I'm a god. There wasn't one today.
He was a really, really great guy. I really, really liked him a lot.